All right, so this Knife Thoughts video is going to be kind of a quick overview review of currently the full line of models from Axial Knives. So Axial Knives is a relatively new company that's kind of made a splash on the knife scene now, as I expected and suspected that they would. I have been a fan of them for a while. I found them on Instagram a while back and was really surprised at how cool the knives looked for, what a great value it seemed like they were being sold at. And so I reached out, and now I am an affiliate of Axial. So make sure if you do decide to get one of these knives, you can use the link in the description. If you can't find what you're looking for at Axial directly, check out Knife Ship Free. I also have a link to there. They carry Axial knives and have some in stock that I don't think are currently in stock at Axial Knives. So check out both those places. If you do go to Axial, you can use the code Knife Thoughts to get a discount. So some of these, not all of them, but some of them were provided for review, just to make that clear. But I just want to do an overview because this is really the only instance in my collection of having all of the models from a company. Now, not all of the knives, obviously. There are a lot of different variations of these two knives, the Dart and Shift, but I do have all of the models. And now there are a lot more models coming. They've got some really, really exciting stuff on the way. I can't wait until I can check them out, show them off, and talk about them. But for now, these are what's available. So I'm actually going to go in this order. And this is kind of the order that these knives were released in. And I say that because the Dart, this is the original version of the Dart and the current version of the Dart. This is the 2022 or updated version of the Shift. Then the fixed blade is the Alpine, and the manual folder is the Enzi. So the order that I got them in also, I do have another Axial Knives knife, which is the original version of the Shift. That one I'm not going to show because they are no longer selling that version. But let's start out with the Dart here. So this is a really cool kind of burly little California legal auto, which means it has a pretty short blade, but a really cool blade. It has a kind of a very stout Tonto blade. Now, just to put it right out there, I've seen people claim that this is similar to the Microtech Exocet or something like that. I don't think it is. I think that people are much too quick in the knife industry to like call out plagiarism, and then there's like this whole subculture of being okay with straight up clones, and they don't reconcile very well. But I do think that this is not similar to that Microtech model. Has a completely different design, and that's one of the things that really initially drew me to Axial Knives. And you can see that this is kind of dirty because I have used it, but the Dart has a really unique design and really shows off Axial's kind of unique aesthetic, which has these really cool bevels on both sides, a very interesting handle shape here with some angles, this curve here at the bottom, and just a really unique aesthetic, like I said. I do love Axial's logo here. Very, very cool. It's an A and an X. I like that a lot. And it also has the American flag machined in because their out the front knives are made in the USA. Now, they did share recently that their OEM was Millet, but they are moving towards being fully in-house production. So I think that both of those things are great. Millet is well known to be a great OEM, but I think that it will be good for production to move in-house with Axial also. But this knife is made in the USA. Also has some cool machining here along the edges for a little bit of extra grip. But great action on this one, and I've used this knife a good bit, tested it a lot, because I did have one of these that came off the tracks. So I wanted to make sure that was a fluke, and it does seem like that it was. This one works great. I haven't had any issues with it. And the main thing that I really like about the Dart is that the blade just cuts super well. I mean, these blades are ground so thinly. Of course, it's sturdy because of the type of grind that it has, this Tonto, but the edge is so thin. I mean, this thing is like a little box cutter, basically. So if you need a utility knife, something that's really great for opening boxes, cutting packages, even breaking down cardboard, I think the Dart is a really, really good choice. It has this edge, or this point here between the two edges, and that makes for a great, just slicing tape on a package. And then this area, it really, really cuts well. I was really impressed with how this blade cuts. So very cool little kind of stout out the front knife from Axial. Now, like I mentioned, this is actually the second version of the Shift. So the Shift originally had a butt here shape that was more similar to the Dart with the downward curve. But Colby, one of the, or the owner, either one of or the owner of Axial Knives, said that a lot of people kind of asked for that to be changed to have a better blade to handle ratio, as well as maybe ergonomics, and then also so that the clip could be reversed, because this clip actually can't be reversed. So they asked for the clip to be able to be reversed for left-handed carry. So they changed the butt of the knife, and I do think that it was a good change, because I think that it keeps that aesthetic. You can see that this Shift also has those great bevels, really cool, unique aesthetic that I really enjoy. And I think that it keeps that even with having two edges here rather than just that curve. And it does make it, I think, more ergonomic. It's not gonna, if you were kind of choking down on the handle, it's not gonna stick into your finger. I don't think that it's a huge thing with the ergonomics, but it does certainly make the handle a little shorter, so you get a better blade to handle ratio. Now, another thing is that this knife has several different blade shapes. So this is the Wharncliffe, which I really like, really cool looking Wharncliffe. Now this blade is not ground as thin as the Tonto, so it's a little bit less slicey, for sure, as you can probably kind of see at the tip there, but it is going to be a sturdy blade and everything. So it works well, just not quite as incredibly thinly ground as on the Dart. But they also have a clip point, a really classic clip point, and a spear point, or like a dagger type blade shape. So I went with the Wharncliffe because I think it's really cool. It's maybe a little bit more of a modified Wharncliffe than a traditional Wharncliffe, but it has a nice, very gradual curve to the edge that makes it a very useful blade shape. So there are several different blade shapes you can get, as well as several different handle colors. That's true on both of these, but there are more handle colors, I believe, on the Shift. So there's this red, which is a very deep, kind of dark maroon red. Not maroon, but just really dark red. There's blue, there's black, there's like a teal, an orange, a purple, and it's one of those things where they're all such cool looking, good looking colors that I've considered getting other colors also, but how many do you really need? I guess Axial probably thinks all of them. Maybe you need all of them, but anyway, I have considered getting other colors because they do look so cool. I kind of would like to get the purple handle with a black blade. I think that'd be really cool looking. But they also have both non-coated, like this, and a coated version of the blade of all the different blade shapes. So you can choose between that. This knife, both of the out the fronts have great action, fires strongly, retracts strongly. Almost all out the front knives have some blade play, but there's not like more than on other knives. I would say that it's comparable to a Microtech in my opinion, and just works really well. And the clip is reversible, so you can reverse that clip, which is a nice feature. So I think that these are really great options if you're looking for, again, a USA made out the front knife. I think that they offer a great value. Now, one thing that I've noticed on a couple of these, I've seen a few of these 2022 versions. The only thing that I think, and they might have changed this since I got this knife because I did, tell them about it to give them some feedback. There's a little bit of a lip on the front end of the handle here, just on this side. That's really the only complaint I have with this knife, and certainly it's a small complaint, but I did want to mention that just for full transparency. There's a little bit of a lip on the machining there, but you know, if that's the only issue with a knife, that's a pretty good thing. So I think that these shifts are a really good option, you know, if you're looking for a USA made out the front knife. Honestly, I think that they're probably the best option. I mean, I don't have a whole lot of different brands, but I've got to check out a good number of brands, and I think that these are, you know, definitely up there with the best. So I highly suggest checking one out. And like I said, keep an eye out for some really cool stuff coming down the pipe from Axial. The Shift is a knife that I really think is a winner. I think that if you like out the front knives, you should try one of these. Now, moving on to the fixed blade. This is the Alpine. A couple things with this fixed blade, just to like say it out the front here. Not to make a pun, that was not intended. But the next two knives are made overseas. So Axial is intending to move all production in-house, is what they've told me, but just due to logistics and stuff, these two knives, the first runs, were made overseas. Now, I did put out a review of this knife, and it was a relatively negative review because I got one that the sheath was basically, I think, just a kind of a dud. The sheath did not have the retention that it should. And, you know, they said that it was out of specs and they replaced it and everything. The other thing is I did talk about the fact that it's made in China, that it's made overseas. I would love to have seen both of these knives made in the USA, but the price would probably be different. And it sounds like it just wasn't something that they were able to accomplish, you know, at the time that these came out. But the main reason why I discussed the fact that this was made overseas is that one of the challenges that Axial has faced is people kind of, you know, suggesting that these knives are not made in the USA. Now that has been, you know, kind of, I think a lot of that has died down. People have, you know, trust in the brand now and everything, but because they were a new brand, bringing really high quality out the front knives to the market at a price that really no other quality American made out the front knives were, people sometimes questioned that they were made in the USA, and I think partly because, you know, Axial wasn't able to say who their OEM was. Now that they have put that out there, that it is Millet and they're moving production in-house, I think that most of that questioning has died down, and that's good because, you know, I've talked to Colby a lot, and I really think that he has great intentions. He just wants to bring high quality knives, value driven prices to the market, made in the USA, and that it's frustrating, that it has been frustrating to him for people to question that. So I'm really happy to see that people are questioning that less, because I think they should. It's something where, you know, they're made in the USA. So that was kind of the main thing, is that I think at the time I thought that bringing out this knife made overseas probably wasn't going to help the cause of building that trust that these knives, the out the fronts, are made in the USA. Of course, that it shouldn't affect, and I think that was something that you know, was, it shouldn't affect people's understanding that these are made in the USA, that these were made in China. One doesn't have an effect over the other, but that's not really the way people think, is what kind of my argument was in the video and to Colby, is that people, you know, just might have some suspicions whether or not they're based in, you know, legitimacy, which I don't really think that they are, but they might have them. So that was kind of my argument in the video. But like I said, I think that most of that doubt has gone away. I think people trust and understand and believe that the out the front knives are made in the USA. So getting that out of the way. I have a lot of knives made in China, and I don't care that it is made in China. You know, like I said, try to stay out of, like I've said before, I try to stay out of all the politics in the knife community entirely. So I just like nice knives, and this is a nice knife. It is a smaller EDC type fixed blade. as you can see, there's no guard. That's one thing that is a little bit of a challenge for me. What I believe that I'm going to do, I haven't done it yet, but what I believe that I'm going to do is actually grind away a little bit at the heel of the edge here. Really simple thing to do. You can just take a sharpener. I'll probably use a Dremel, but you could just take a sharpener and just take that heel of the edge away. And the reason for that is that would just give you a little bit of extra safety to not have that kind of nipping at your finger there if you do slide forward. But very easy to carry. I do like this thin kind of, I don't think it's Tech-Lock branded, but this Tech-Lock style clip. It does work well and is easy to clip on. Because it's small, it's easy to carry also. I did find that it was actually more comfortable carrying vertical for me than sideways, just because these clips are relatively tall or wide. So it was, pretty easy to carry. I think this knife is a great little EDC fixed blade. Like I said, I would just make a little change at the heel of the edge there, but the handle is really comfortable aside from that. Like I said, I have wide hands, and you can get pretty much all 4 fingers. My pinky finger does hang off a little bit, but because of the shape of the handle, it feels comfortable. It actually feels really nice and ergonomic in the hand. And one thing that you might have noticed here is this kind of theme of these 3 lines. And I think that that's a really cool thing that Axial does. It's kind of a brand differentiator, I guess I would say, something like that, or brand identifier. But all of these knives have those 3 lines. So you can see it on the shift. You can see it on the dart. A little different on the dart just because of the swedging. But then you can see it on the Alpine also. So I think if you're looking for a little EDC fixed blade, particularly if you, it's not something that you're going to be using in a tactical type environment, you don't mind that it doesn't have a guard at all, which a lot of knives don't have a guard. But if you don't mind that, then I think the Alpine is a great choice for you. I do think that it is ground well, cuts well, and has a really practical classic drop point blade shape. So that is the Axial Alpine. Like I said, a little bit of a negative first review video that I did on that, but I do think that the sheath was probably a fluke, and overall it's a nice little light duty type of fixed blade. Finally, getting into a knife that I've actually been carrying consistently for several days, just don't feel like taking it out of my pocket basically, is the Enzi. Now this one again is made overseas, but this is a manual flipper, so it's not an automatic knife, it's a manual flipper, frame lock, and pretty much everything except for the blade and pivot is titanium. So you can see the screws are titanium, the clip is titanium, the pivot is titanium. When I say pivot, I mean the bearings in there. I think that the stop pin is not titanium, but I'm not even 100% sure of that, to be completely honest, but it would make sense if it wasn't. And then of course the blade is not titanium, it is 20 CV. By the way, I meant to mention I believe both the out the fronts are now available in 20 CV as well as S35 VN, which is what the Alpine is in, S35 VN. But this shift is 20 CV and the dart is CPM S35 VN. So those are the steels that you can get. But the Enzi here is in that 20 CV. Sorry, this is so dirty. Like I said, I have been using this a lot recently. But this is a really nice little EDC fixed blade. Or I'm sorry, not fixed blade, flipper. I typically carry a bigger knife than this as my modern knife. But this thing is so smooth. It is the smoothest flipper I have ever had. And, I've had a lot of flippers, and it just is so smooth. It's so smooth that I asked Axial, or I think Colby directly, it might have been just the Instagram person, but I don't know, maybe they're the same, I don't know. But I asked somebody if it was like a particular pivot, a particular ball bearing system that they use, because it is so smooth. And they said no, it's just kind of like, whatever they were using basically. But it is super smooth. It's hard to even get across in the video how smooth it is. It's just like very smooth. I know that I've said that same thing over and over again, but the other thing is it has a great detent. So it flips really well. Nice, strong, really kind of sticky detent. So once you break that detent, it flips really, really nicely. The handle is kind of matches the aesthetic of the out the fronts, not exactly, but has that kind of blocky, but at the same time kind of futuristic look, and is actually pretty comfortable. That's another thing. When I first saw this knife, I didn't really think it would be all that comfortable in the hand, but having carried and used it a good bit, it actually is. It's very comfortable. Has a great cutout here on the handle, so it's really easy to get at the lock bar to close the knife, and just comfortable in the hand, comfortable in use. One thing that I think is really smart about the design is that this lock bar continues up to the point where, unlike a lot of frame locks, your finger, when you're holding the knife, is pressing against this corner here. And it can make a frame lock knife like very uncomfortable in actual use, because you know, if you're using the knife a lot, it's pressing against that corner. And the great thing about this is that it doesn't have, you're not going to press against that corner, you're going to press against this curve. So that's a really, really nice design choice. Just a really comfortable handle, surprisingly comfortable to me. And then moving on to the blade, this has kind of like a reverse tanto is what Benchmade calls this. It's similar to the 940, but not exactly. And just a good blade for use. Has this kind of cutoff area, and then a little bit of straight, but then a really nice gradual curve. So a good using knife, ground well. I found that it cuts well, holds an edge well, being that it's 20 CV. And this is a knife that, you know, as you can probably tell from how I'm talking about it, exceeded my expectations. I honestly wasn't sure that I would be a big fan of this knife just because it's small and, you know, not exactly what I would normally carry. But I have been really enjoying carrying this, especially over the last few days. So it's kind of what prompted this video, actually, as I was carrying this so much that it's like maybe I should do a kind of a second look at this knife, and decided to do all of them. But one other thing I wanted to show real quick here that's cool, you can see that it has those 3 cutouts, but also instead of just having 1 cutout for the frame lock, it has 3. So I think that's a really cool, nice little touch. So just a quick, I guess not that quick, but just an overview of the models that are available currently from Axial Knives. Like I said, do keep an eye out. They've got some really cool stuff coming down the pipeline that I am personally really excited for. So like I said, I'm an affiliate for Axial, so if you want to support the channel, you can buy directly through Axial using the link in the description, and you can get a discount using the code KNIFETHOUGHTS. If they don't have what you're looking for, check out Knives Ship Free using the link in the description. They might have it. But either way, I hope you are able to pick up and enjoy an Axial knife. I have certainly enjoyed mine. And if you've enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. You can subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. Also, check me out on social media. I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Knife Thoughts, and my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like these and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.